This is episode 372. I'm your host, Blain Pudvay, and I'm joined now by my co-host, Matt Smith.
Good evening. Happy September.
Yay.
This year's flown by. It really has.
You'd think nothing happened. Like there was no fires, no floods, no. The only thing missing from this summer was locusts.
Yeah. A lot's happened this year, but it's honestly, it's flown by. I cannot believe it's September 1st today.
Yeah, it has really just clicked on by, and it's just going to steamroll us into the fall. Like we're at the point now where we're only a couple of weeks away from the start of training camp.
Right? Yeah, we get the Buffalo tournament coming up soon within a couple weeks. And as everyone probably saw on Twitter, the Canadiens put out their new wallpaper and there's hockey on the schedule. We got some preseason games coming up, and it's going to be some exciting times. There's going to be a lot to talk about.
Oh, yes. Honestly, even in the dead of summer, there was always something to talk about with the Canadiens because why not?
Sorry, people, you got to keep hearing our voices in inopportune times.
We did take a little bit of a break there, cutting back to one show. And we had to go a couple of weeks without anything because we were so busy. Treg actually right now he's on duty on the base. He is holding down the fort. I feel safer knowing he's there.
I do too, because if anything comes in there, he's just gonna flex, and they're just gonna be like, "I don't want any part of that."
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He just flashes the spray tan.
Oh yeah.
Bam.
Oh yeah. It just looks like a beacon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but things are drawn
The,
to it. That's the problem, right? He just looks
the
like this
gleam off
gold.
his pecs.
Yeah, he just looks like this gold statue up on the hill.
And he makes his pecs dance to scare them.
Yeah. Like a sexy flexing lighthouse.
Stupid, sexy Treg.
Yeah.
All right. So for this episode, there's a few things that we're going to talk about. The first thing we're going to talk about is the Canadiens released a draft video where it goes into some detail on what led up to the draft, and it gives us a little bit of a bird's eye view. There's clearly so much left on the editing room floor, but
Yeah.
there's a few things that we can talk about. So I wanted to get your take on the overall of that video.
I like that there was a little bit of you could tell there was a little bit of fire in the room. Some of the scouts were a little bit more heated than others in some of their discussions. Obviously, we don't know everyone that they were talking about. Obviously, there's a lot of speculation out there when they started talking about some of these highly skilled guys and everything, and they kind of blanked out some words and they muffled some voices and everything and whatever else. But you can think that maybe they were talking about a Ryan Leonard, maybe they were talking about a Matvei Michkov. That a lot of people thought, if available, Montreal's got to swing for the fences of this guy. Obviously, that didn't happen. But the one that really stuck out to me was when they were talking about Jacob Fowler and saying that this guy's been the best in his position for X amount of years, and he's he pretty much be unnoticed. He's likely going to be available, and I like the fire. I like the fire that he showed, and then when they talked to Fowler, and they talked to him about kind of like what gets you going, and when he said that line about sitting in his living room with his parents wearing a shirt and tie watching the OHL draft, watching the USHL draft, 5-6 hours, not hearing his name, and then really proving everybody wrong, and now being considered one of, if not the best young United States goaltenders out there. Winning the USHL championship, he's the playoff MVP, wins the goaltender of the year award, etc. Like, this guy definitely has it into him, and I think that he has surpassed probably any goaltending prospect the Canadiens have right now. And I'm not even talking about even goaltending prospects. Like, you look at the pecking order, and this guy's jumped over guys that have even maybe made pro debuts.
Yeah, they've got him pretty high up with his potential. Just based on
Yes,
potential, he's seen as a starter, a true starter.
absolutely.
And
And to get him in the third round,
it,
position of need. Obviously, we don't know what's going on with Carey Price, but we can only speculate. The guy sold his house in Montreal. They yes, there's all the talks. We're gonna, oh yeah, he's gonna start. He's gonna start with the team. Well, that's an LTIR thing. That's the only. That's the only thing they're trying to do. They're trying to maximize their potential for LTIR. I'd
that's it.
love to
Yeah.
see the guy back. I'm a massive Carey Price fan. I always have been, always will be. Unfortunately, his days in Montreal as a player look to be over. So I look at a guy like Fowler. We were able to speak to him in Nashville. Very nice kid. His father was a very nice guy as well.
Yeah.
He seems very determined. He seems very goal oriented. He seems very focused. And the fact that he's going to be going to Boston College after such a good year with the Youngstown's Phantoms, going into Boston College with such a
Our team.
stacked roster. Really, yeah. They've got,
Yeah.
well, Will Smith's going to be there. Just to name one of the players that's going to be there,
The whole line.
as Ryan Leonard. So he's going to have
Yeah.
some good players to play with him. The spotlight's going to be on them, and I think honestly the sky's the limit for this kid. And I would say he's one of Montreal's top 5 prospects right now.
Um, yeah, yeah, I could agree with that. The non-professional playing prospects, I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah,
Um, and the fact that he's going to Boston College really, really helps, I think. You touched on a little bit. For me, it's the competition level of the ECAC. He's going to be up against some of the best teams in the
yeah,
country
yeah,
down there, and that means he's going to have to start really studying those players. So in the video, they interviewed him and they asked him about
oh, the
this player,
shooters
what
and
hand he
stuff.
shoots,
Yeah,
and
that was impressive.
yeah, that
Yeah,
shows that he is actually planning. He is thinking about the game. He's not
yeah,
just focused on reacting. He's pre-planning what he's going to do.
yeah,
Uh, and the fact that he went from undrafted to the absolute best goalie in the league, that says a lot. That fuck you, I'm going to show you what's what
yeah,
attitude. Instead of being all pissy, he focused it into his game.
yeah, yeah,
That's a high character kid that I think with the competition he's going to be facing and the help he's going to have in developing, this is a guy that really does open my eyes a bit. I'm hopeful.
yeah. Well, I remember when we were sitting together in day 2 of the draft, and this pick was coming up. I looked at you and I said, Jacob Fowler should be the pick, and
Yeah,
it happened. So he was
yeah,
on
it
my
did.
he was on my list. He was quite high. We had talked to other goaltenders, and they were flying off the board. Like
Yeah,
Gage and like Gage was the first one to go, and we kind of looked at each other and we're like, all right, maybe a little bit of a surprise. However, put up a solid performance during the junior tournament, and it was kind of goaltender after goaltender after goaltender, and
yeah.
we're like, okay, is Montreal gonna jump on one of these guys eventually? And this pick came up. They heard his name, and again, I think sky's the limit for this guy. I think he's going to be a future starter, and he impressed me. He impressed me with with how he answered the questions and his demeanor, and when he talked about playing under the lights and that pressure's a privilege and all this stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think this guy's just trying to throw lines out for the cameras in front of him. Like, I think that this guy's he's got the tools, and now it's just to refine them, and for the Canadiens team to develop this guy properly into a future number 1 goaltender. He's already got the size for it. He's still growing. He's a 6'2" goaltender. He's already over 220. He's got the
He's
size.
not
He
chubby.
moves right. No, he's not. He's got the right, and he moves well.
Yeah.
He's got the pedigree behind him. He knows his own skill set. Um, I'm looking forward to seeing what this guy can do.
What
However,
really? Okay, go ahead.
no, I was just going to get into Reinbacher.
No, I'm going to stay on Fowler for just a second, but not really Fowler. The underlining issue around Fowler. Listening to the in the video, you see two scouts kind of jawing at each other over goaltenders, and the point made was Fowler's a gamer. If
Yeah,
he's in a game, he's going to win it for you. When you have
yeah,
a game on the line, that's the guy you want. And the other scout was adamant about some other kid who had so-called better tools.
right.
And the one that was backing Fowler made a very good point about you can draft for the tools and hope it comes together. You can draft the kid who goes he was a gamer.
Yeah,
Like it's not I don't think it's a bad idea to go either way, but the fact that they went with the kid who's a gamer says something that they're really focusing on trying to win. And like you look at it's kind of like the difference between Patrick Roy and uh, Martin Brodeur. Brodeur is almost impeccable. He's got that reputation. Whereas Roy, he is known as someone who gives up a bad goal here and there, but he's going to fight through the game. That's the
yeah,
kind of that's the argument they were having back and forth, and they chose the gamer.
yeah. I really wonder who they were talking about in that time,
Yeah,
because in kind of how they had this guy ranked, or where they had this guy ranked, because I'm just pulling up the draft right now, and we're talking goaltenders. Round two, Gajan went at 35, Harabel went at 38, Augustine went 41, Carson Bjarnson, who is very highly
mm-hmm.
considered to be one of the top goaltenders, he went to Philly at 51, and then Damien Clara went at 60, and the next goalie was Fowler at 69. So I'm
It was a
wondering
very
who,
nice pick.
right? So I'm wondering who maybe that other player was.
I'm just making an assumption and thinking it's Bjarnstrom
Maybe,
because I
maybe.
believe the scout that was pushing the tools is from the West. I'm just
Okay,
I think don't quote me on it, but that's my idea behind it.
right.
So
But with that, they would have had to trade up to do it,
yes,
right? Because at that point, the deal had already been made for Newhook,
mm-hmm.
so they didn't have those second round picks anymore.
Yeah, no late first, no early second.
Yeah,
That if they had not made the trade for Newhook, I honestly believe they would have made a pick for a goaltender with that 37th overall.
yeah. Because I know we had talked Harabel quite a bit
Yeah.
if he had been available and everything like that. So
But I think they made that deal knowing that they were comfortable with one of the four others,
yeah,
namely Fowler,
yeah,
clearly. Um,
yeah,
Now you wanted to talk about Reinbach.
yeah. I just the way that they portrayed him in the video, like they,
Mm-hmm.
yes, there was some good footage, but there was some of the footage that they showed. I just kind of think it was more like filler footage with him. I thought that when they talked about Fowler, it was here's a here's kind of like a fiery, confident player, and I didn't see that in the video that they showed for Reinbacher. I'm not saying the kid doesn't have it in him or anything like that, but I just kind of thought it was like they were showing like perspectives of two different players. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know, I think they just could have been a little bit better maybe with what they decided to share with the in that small video. Like I like how they put the spot at the end with him signing his contract and showing his family and everything. That's great. That's an awesome
Yeah.
moment. Um, and I do like some of the back and forth that they had. And again, we don't know who they were talking about. Could be Mitchkov, could be Leonard, who knows? But I do like the point that they said, you look at some of the last top teams that have won the Stanley Cup, they've had that premier defenseman. And I like the back and forth that they had there. And I do think that he's going to end up being a solid pick. Is he going to be that offensive dynamo defenseman? Who knows? But as of right now, he does everything that he needs to do. He was the top defenseman in the draft. He went as the top defenseman in the draft, and now it's up to the Montreal Canadiens to develop him properly and not to rush him. Um, so I have a question for you.
God.
They've brought him over, which is, and just calm down, everybody. I'm sure you saw it on Cap Friendly that he's been loaned to the Montreal Canadiens. That is something that needs to be done for him to come over. It's not that they're bringing him over. He's not starting with the team, etc. Like, calm down. It could happen. But I'm thinking that if he comes over and he performs and outperforms some of the guys that are possibly already on the roster, does he get that maybe 9-game window, or does he maybe start with the team?
Um, I think that he is going to stay till the very end of camp and then go back to Europe. He'll get a bunch of games in the preseason and they'll send him back. I think it's more to let him take some more time to acclimatize, to develop a little bit more and keep him out of the spotlight that is in Montreal. Uh, we all know about the garbage that happened after he was picked,
Yep.
and I would assume that they would want to keep him out of that for as long as they can.
Right.
So my assumption is he just goes right back.
Right. I would have to agree with you. I would say it's the best place for him. Go there, play top minutes in the Swiss League, get as much experience as you can, learn as much as you can while you're in North America for training camp, and then go back, play the top minutes, go to the juniors, and just highlight, showcase yourself, highlight, do whatever you got to do, and come back next year and fight for a spot.
Yeah, yeah, that's my expectation for him. Um, yeah, it's a tough call. I mean, I know a lot of people would want to keep him here, but with so many players already filling the roster, there's no need. They don't have a specific need to put him in. Like if there was an opening, maybe, perhaps. But there's no they've got enough people that could play in the NHL as it is. As good or as bad as they may be, there's people there.
Right.
And there's no their hand isn't being forced here. So they can make the best decision for the player in the long run.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say from the video?
I've seen a lot of people making comments about, oh my God, look, they picked out that they're talking about players at the exact position they picked them, like they knew where they were going to be. Well, no, this is all edited footage.
Yeah.
Clearly, they at every single pick they had, they talked about several players.
Yeah.
So the why would they're not going to put out video about players that were picked by other teams that they
Right.
were talking about? They're
Right.
only going to put out the stuff they talked about
Yeah.
their own that
Yeah.
they ended up with.
And that's something that they're not really allowed to do and post that,
Exactly.
which we saw in the earlier parts of the video when they're discussing these other players.
They're
Right.
muted.
They're all muted. Exactly. Right.
So
So yes, you can
yeah,
say that Florian Jacki was on their list at whatever pick. You can say that
101, I think. Yeah.
uh Kunishnikov or Kalishnikov or whatever the hell his name is, the Russian KHL defenseman, and was available. We had never even heard of him before, but he looks to be a promising defender. So um, I'm gonna give them some faith. We talked about the draft afterwards. We were there, and we were all surprised that they took 3 goalies and they did this and they did this, and maybe kind of scratched our heads a little bit on the Reinbacher pick and everything, but that was a couple months ago, and I think that we've done our research a little bit more, and we may feel a little bit better about it. But at the same time, we haven't seen any of these guys play since that happened. So I'm looking forward to the next couple weeks and seeing some of these guys in action at the rookie camp, and we'll go from there.
I particularly like the feel that the scouts had about the draft as a whole, because they're talking about, well, Jack Eye is going to be there at 101. He may not be there at the next pick. We can get that Russian kid in the 5th round, and it's Kalishnikov that you're
Yeah,
talking
whatever his
about,
name is, right?
the AK-47.
Yeah,
So they were putting together a strategy and mitigating strategies
yeah.
to get the players they wanted. And the last piece I want to talk about with that video is Bobrov calling Jack-Eye a unicorn. People are all up in arms about that too, thinking that he means he's going to be a superstar or whatever. No, no. I think he feels that the kid's going to be an NHL player
Yeah,
because he brings specific tools that are hard to find.
yeah.
It's hard to find a kid who can skate like he does and play physically and have the frame that he has. Like when he was drafted, he was 6'2", and he's already grown another inch or two.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kid's gonna be big.
Right. So when I look at Florian Jacki, I kind of see them picking a player thinking he's going to possibly, hopefully turn into a guy like what they thought Luke Tuck was going to be.
Yeah, like a middle six energy, physicality type player.
Right. So far, Tuck
Yeah.
hasn't really taken off yet. He's going to be doing his 4th year at Boston University this coming year. The numbers really haven't been there. We used to talk about him as maybe the a next top prospect, and that those thoughts have kind of drifted with his play. We'll see what he brings this year, but I think they're kind of looking at him in maybe that mold of saying, this can be a guy that can be that energy guy in our lineup. And we've seen what his brother brings to the lineup, and he was a late bloomer as well. He was an undrafted player, goes to the Montreal Canadiens on a training camp, walks out with a contract, and now he's a fan favorite.
Yeah.
So if he can bring that same level of work ethic that his brother did, maybe get some reps in at Costco too, then I think that we're looking at at least a third, fourth line player in a few years.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. This is a guy who he's got the basis of a player who can provide you, at the very least, that bottom six type player, energy guy, a physicality, and he could end up being a little bit more. I don't know about unicorn being some star or whatever, but Jay McKee, former NHLer, his head coach with where's the Hamilton team based out of now?
Brantford.
So they're moved to Brantford. So anyway, the Brantford coach, Jay, he's talking about the growth of Florian Jacki just in the summer, and the way he's talking, it sounds like he's going to play a massive role with that team this season. So if he can come into the season, produce offensively, gaining confidence, that would be a massive leap forward in a D+1.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's going to end up being a top line player, but he could end up being an offensively capable third liner.
Yeah.
And you used a 4th round pick on him.
Yeah.
Like that's good pick.
Yeah. I remember I read that thing with McKee, and said that he had grown considerably and gained mass, and he'd be able to pretty much take the vigors of a season, right? Um,
Yeah.
so I'm looking forward to seeing how big this guy actually got, because his brother's at like 6'4".
Yeah.
So, and he got drafted at 6'2". So now we're looking at it's probably 6'3", 6'4". I think he was drafted, he was like 175. I'm looking forward to seeing like when the weigh-ins happen. Is
Yeah.
their training camp? Well, they're playing their first exhibition game tonight. He's not in the lineup, but they are playing their first exhibition game tonight. So I'm looking forward to following this kid. Maybe seeing him play in Kingston or something while he's down. Like, I think that he's got the tools to be an effective NHL, or at least an effective pro. But last year was his first year playing junior hockey.
Yeah, exactly.
right? So, I know 25 points in 68 games isn't a lot of points, but we'll see. We'll see what if the move to Brantford is going to do good things for this franchise.
Well, when we're looking at players playing their first year of junior at that age, we can't really rely on comparisons between players from the past to today. Like there's this comparison between him, if Florian Jackeye, with Anderson when Anderson was with London
Right.
after his draft. I don't think that's a fair comparison
No.
because Anderson didn't have to deal with missing a couple of seasons in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think all the prospects, even now, we're seeing we're seeing some trickle down effects in their development stages. Like
Right.
it's slowed,
Yeah.
and we're going to see this for a few more years yet.
And we're also
So,
talking about we're also talking about him being on the London Knights, which just
yeah,
year after year they pull rabbits out of their hats and they produce great teams.
they're a friggin' monster in junior
Right.
hockey.
So
So that I would be remiss to say, to compare Eye's 12 goals in a season to say Anderson's 12 goals in his first year of junior. I don't think it's fair to say that
right.
because we don't. I don't think we're going to see a top six player out of Eye, but I do feel like we're going to see a very effective NHLer
Yeah.
if the development goes the same path it has in the last couple of years for him.
Yeah. Like I said, I look at his brother as a comparison. If he's looking at his big
Yeah,
brother and say, "This is what I want," and his brother gives him a kick in the ass and say, "Okay, let's do it," that he could make quite a jump.
he could, and it would be cool to see a set of brothers on the team.
Yeah,
I can't remember the last time it's happened with the Canadiens.
probably been a long time.
It was I think the last time was before my day, and I'm old.
I'd have to look that up.
Um, yeah,
For our
that's actually
listeners,
something pretty cool.
that's
Yeah.
that's your homework.
Oh God, I hate homework. All right, so from there we can move on to what we're looking to this season, and the big question that everyone's kind of trying to tackle at this point is: do you want the Canadiens to have another high pick because this draft class is seen as strong again, or do you want to see improvement with the team and some some kind of development where they end up picking a little bit later?
I want to see a team that's going to compete,
Yeah.
right? I like you don't want like I'm never going to cheer for my team to lose. Okay? I'm never going to cheer for my team to lose. Like, yes, there's some good prospects available. There's another high-end Russian kid available this year, right?
Yeah.
We can get very creative with some of the names, just like it was, with Shane Wright or with, go hard for Bedard or whatever. Or now mine is, play like a weenie, get Celebrini, right? So so yes, you can say, and then there's Cole Iserman as well. There's some great young players that are going to be available, but I want to see development in this team. Losing sucks. You go from a Stanley Cup final to rebuild. Yes, you
Yeah.
lose a franchise defenseman. Yes, you lose a franchise goaltender at the same time. It's gonna fuck any time. It's gonna fuck any kind of team. But for it to happen at the same time and the team to go into a nosedive, I want to see development from this team. I want to see the next step. I want to see Suzuki take that next step. I want to see Caufield take that next step, because if they don't, injuries or not, it's going to be all the people in the media saying, well, Caufield just signed this contract, or this person just played this contract, or you traded a first and a second for Newhook or whatever. Like, it's all the what ifs and it's all the bullshit. And I just want to see this team go out, perform night in and night out, and play hard for something and play for their fans. Um, do I expect them to go to the cup final? Absolutely not.
No,
Do I
no.
would I like to see them compete for a wild card spot or a spot within their division? Absolutely. Every fan wants to see that. Is it realistic? I think it is for a wild card spot. Right? A lot of other teams have improved. Some teams have went down a little bit. However, this division that they're in the Atlantic, teams have been bad for quite a few years. And the teams that have been on the top have been on the top. They haven't necessarily been the performers in the playoffs. And I'm looking at Toronto, I'm looking at Boston last year. But a team like Florida who got in at a wild card spot goes to the cup final.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Tampa's been a powerhouse for a long time. Buffalo has sucked for so many years, and now all of a sudden they're starting to stack up with prospects, and those guys are starting to turn heads, and they're starting to win games, and Ottawa's doing the exact same thing. So Montreal needs to show some sort of improvement. That's what I'm thinking. Right? I
well,
don't want them.
I'm
I don't like last year. It was how it was. It wasn't the fact that they were losing games, it's how they were losing games.
yeah.
It's because every fucking time someone got touched, they would be out 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah,
Right. I don't want to see that. We saw at the start of the year the team was on a little bit of a roll and they were beating teams that they shouldn't have they
on
shouldn't have.
paper.
Yeah. Yeah. On paper, they were beating teams they shouldn't have won against.
Yeah.
But then it was trickle down effect of injury after injury after injury after whatever that led to another down season.
Well, I see it just in health. If they come back and they're at least cut that the man games lost in half, you're going to see a much better team.
Yes.
But wanting to stockpile all the high picks all the time, there's no point in doing that. Not
No.
for so long. I mean,
No.
every single year, oh, I want this top guy. Well, of course you want that top guy,
Everyone wants
but
that
your
top
team
guy.
has to suck.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
At some point, the team cannot suck anymore.
Unless you're Arizona.
Yeah. Well, if you're doing a rebuild, you have to take a step forward at some point.
Yeah.
Like if you're legitimate rebuild
Right.
and not just, trying to fill a stadium of 300 people. Like
Right.
you got to take a step forward. And
Yeah.
this is a year
You've got to show some
they have to.
development. You have to show some
Yeah.
development. It's good for the young guys to take that next step in their careers because we're
Play
looking at it
meaningful
right.
games later in the
Yes.
season.
Right. We're looking at a very young team here. Very young leadership. What the fuck was that? Very
Lightning.
young, very young leadership group. And um, I like to see Suzuki. Take that next step.
Yeah,
And
I want to see Caufield get his 40. I
yeah,
want to see
yeah,
Suzuki hit the 80 points.
right,
Everyone wants to see this because then it shows that the investment they've made in these players, not just in dollars but in time
right,
with development, is starting to pay off, and they'll be the players that they need when they expect the team to be a contender.
right, right. You look at the decor where most of them were brand new defensemen last year. Well, now
Yeah,
they've got that season under their belt. They've got a little bit more playing time under their belt. You look at health being another one. You go into the season, you got Monahan back. You brought Newhook in, who's hoping to be one of those guys that's going to jump in and do stuff similar to what Doc has done. Hopefully, he stays healthy. Suzuki continues to be an Iron Man. And again, if Caufield played 46 games last year and scored 26 goals, that's over a 40 goal pace. I think that it would be incredible to see. Nobody scored over 40 since Riche, or was that 50?
the last one to score 40 was Downfus in
Okay.
1994
Okay. Nobody scored 50
or
since Riche.
95, 94,
Okay.
95 that
Okay.
season. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I would love to see a 40 goal score in Montreal. It's been a long time.
Well, the closest they've
Pacioretty
come,
came close.
yeah, it was Pacioretty and Kovalev both had 39
Right.
once
Right.
each.
Right.
That's it. That's the closest the Habs have been to a 40 goal scorer in the last 30 years.
Right.
Like it's they've only had one player get more than a point per game in the last 25 years.
Yeah. And what was the last highest scorer that maybe even hit 70 points was Domi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the highest it's been. Yeah, that was the highest it's been in the last few
And then,
years.
well, yeah.
And the last 100-point Montreal Canadian was Mats Naslund in the 80s. Like it's been the Habs have been bereft of offense now for
Right.
quite some time. So
Right.
it'd be nice to see that offense starting to come back. And I know that's the argument for the Mitchkov thing again, but the Canadiens already have a small scoring winger in Caufield. It's the way I saw it. That's why I wanted Leonard, and
Right.
that's why I don't feel bad that they picked Reinbacher.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I got. You got anything else?
Do you want to quickly bring up the Ducharme comment?
Sure. Let's talk
Sure.
about that.
Okay. So what was it? He was on the Sick podcast
Yeah.
with Tony. Okay. And one of the questions that come up
Friend of the
and
show.
yeah, friend of the show. And one of the comments that come up about if he thinks that he held Caufield back. And he said, I did not slow him down. I was not holding him back. It's an unfortunate coincidence. I'm sure if you told Cole about it, he'd tell you pretty much the same story. You know what? Cole Caufield, he seems like a very good kid. And I don't think he's going to throw his former coach under the bus. I don't think he's that kind of person. Dominic Ducharme, recently hired by the Vegas Golden Knights as an assistant coach, going to be joining Bruce Cassidy's crew there. I don't necessarily believe that he held him back. I just believe that it was his style, like it was his coaching style, and it was some of the decisions he made with his utilization on the power play, or maybe some of his line mates, that kind of stuff. I'm not going to necessarily say he held him back and wanted him to fail, or to, oh, you've got to play on the bottom lines to show your worth in the NHL or anything like that. We saw how he was in the playoffs when Ducharme was the coach, and he was an impact player almost every time he was on the ice. However, in my eyes, they were still utilizing the Julian systems.
Yeah.
Right? You bring in Ducharme, then brings in his own systems, and they weren't working. And even Jeff Petrie called out his coach and said, this shit ain't working. And yes, they hashed it out later on and everything, and I think they're fine now. But coincidence or not, they brought in Martin St. Louis, another player that, a young goal or a small goal scoring winger. And after Ducharme was let go, he went from a goal and I believe a goal and 8 assists to 22 goals in 37 games and 35 points. And since St. Louis has been his coach, there has been that fire under him. And we saw that last year prior to that injury, where he was playing with a shoulder injury and he was still putting the puck in the net. And it got to a point where they were like, we're shutting you down because we don't want long-term effects. But for a team that was struggling, 36 points with 26 goals in 46 games is pretty good for a 22-year-old on a struggling team.
Oh yeah. No, it absolutely is. And while I don't disagree with Ducharme's characterizations, it, essentially he's basing his point of view on the fact that they had a short off season. Yes, that Caufield may have tweaked his shoulder, sure, but at the end of the day, it's that stuff was going on with all the other players as well, and the whole team did look bad.
Yeah.
And then the injuries started them out, and they had problems and blah blah blah, but not the other players were not as dramatically bad or unproductive as Caufield was.
Yeah.
It's not like Caufield was playing poorly. He was lacking confidence. He was lacking uh, opportunities. He was being used in situations that he is not really used to being used in, like defensive starts and on lines with defensive type players. He doesn't have. So did Ducharme is Ducharme completely to blame? No, but he does carry a heavy burden
Right.
as to the reason why. And the proof is in the pudding.
Right.
This kid, as soon as Ducharme left, day one under St. Louis, he went from not scoring goals to having 5 goals in the first 7 games. Like it was just a night and day difference between his play under Ducharme and his play under St. Louis. I think it had a lot to do not just with his utilization, but the chemistry he had with his coach. Like they could communicate, but I don't think there was really any understanding. You know what I mean? Like they didn't jive.
No.
And the second St. Louis showed up, everything clicked for him.
Yeah. I'm looking at St. Louis, and I like his, how he trains the players, and he does it in game time scenarios and everything like that.
Hmm.
And kind of does some high intensity stuff and everything like that. I still would like to see more system put in place. If that makes
I think we're going to see that
sense,
this year.
right? If that makes
Yeah.
sense. He's got another full year in. Um, they're establishing kind of what their core looks like. They're going to want to see progression of certain players. They're going to want to see what a guy like Slafkovsky is going to bring to the table. A guy like Harvey Pinard is going to bring to the table, maybe in a full season. Mike Matheson in a full camp and a full season. Because that's going to, you have Mike Matheson all of a sudden now on your power play. Your power play should at least do a little bit better than it did last year. Knowing that
Yes. Hard not to.
knowing that he only put up knowing that he only put up 48 games last year, but he put up 34 points. I'd like to see a little bit more system from St. Louis, but at the end of the day, I want to see a healthy team. That's all I care about.
Man, I would love to see them not set man games loss records this year. That would be great.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Jesus. I, as much as I love watching the Laval Rocket, I prefer them watching them when they're playing in the AHL and not in the NHL,
Yes. Yes.
especially when
Like
they're not ready.
and the thing is, like, it screws development up so much with having
It
to
does.
pull these guys out, and it's all out of necessity. And yeah, I'm hoping to establish a top line this year. All right. I'm hoping that they
Yeah.
find that winger to play on the top line with Suzuki and Caufield. And I'd like to see, like, you look at the best teams in the league, they've got lines that don't change. And I'd love to see that happen with Montreal one day.
I don't mind the whole pairs having set pairs and finding wingers that could graft onto that top line and play. Like there's a game they're playing against a big heavy team. Well, there's one big heavy player
Right.
that can go on that line and
Yeah.
match up. And when you got a faster team you're up against, you get a faster player on that line with them and they match up. I don't mind that approach, but I agree. Consistency is key because it's got to be the same players on those lines. If you're going up against the big teams, it's the same guy every time, and the same with the speed of your teams. Same guy with
Yep.
those two. You need to build that chemistry over a long period of time because you don't end up like the perfection line in Boston overnight.
Right. Yep.
So, do you have any final thoughts on the show?
On the show, no. Just in a whole. Make sure
In
you
general,
follow us. Make sure you follow us on every platform you can. We're closing in on 5,000 on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it now. And it'd be great to hit that mark, obviously, before the start of the season. Follow us on YouTube if you're watching us on there now. Thank you. Make sure you hit subscribe. And other than that, I got the news. I will be deploying next year. It is confirmed.
Yay, we're going to be on the same side of the planet at the same time.
Yeah, I'll wave. I'll wave from the water. You'll wave
As
from
I
in the
sail
water.
past,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you're going to be on the beach.
No, it's not a beach, unfortunately, but there's water there.
There's water. Um, well, that's good news. That's good. You're going to
Yeah.
be able to get a little bit extra money, another medal,
Yeah.
uh, continue to be our hero here on Habs Unfiltered.
I will do my best. And I'm already looking at what I can bring and what my uh kind of what my room layout's supposed to look like and everything, see what the Wi-Fi is like. So hopefully, while you're getting ready to deploy, while I'm deployed, we can still throw out some shows every now and then, even with a time difference of 5-6 hours, right?
Yeah,
We'll do our
yeah, we
best.
could.
Hopefully, and hopefully we have some good things to talk about when I can make it on the show.
Yeah. Now, for me, I need to keep the tradition alive. I was asked to do this, so I'm going to do it. Freaking Treg.
You have a dad joke, don't you?
It's a dad joke.
Okay.
Did you hear that laughing too loud? Oh, no, I'm not doing that one. That is horrible. No, Treg. Just no. I'm moving on to the alternate.
Okay.
Mom keeps asking why I have so much candy. She doesn't know I always keep a few Twix up my sleeve. That physically hurt.
Yeah. I bet it did.
Physically hurt. Like I feel ill. Ill. Oh,
Yeah.
anyway,
I bet you that one hurt a little bit.
it did. It was horrible. Absolutely disgustingly horrible. But the tradition has been kept alive.
Yeah.
So that's it for the show. I want to thank everybody who tuned in, who listened, watched us on YouTube. Uh, I echo Matt's sentiment. Follow us on all the different platforms. We're on almost every single social media platform. Find one, follow. Find all, follow. Um, and I want to thank you for tuning in and listening this long, especially after that horrible freaking joke. If you're still here, you are a saint.
Yeah. That's
So I want to thank
when
you.
everyone hit subscribe.
Yeah. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. You guys make this show successful. It's your comments to us, your ideas, where the interaction that we have fuels us on this show. It gives us ideas that we can talk about things that everybody else is discussing, and we keeps us grounded. We understand what other fans think, and it keeps us from being douchebags year round. We're only douchebags part time.
Right.
Yeah. So again, thank you very much for listening, and remember.